It was Halloween, and Mrs. Causon hated Halloween. Each year, she spent the evening in her armchair watching television and helping herself to a bowl of candy. But when the children came knocking, she refused to give them a single piece. Over the years, the neighborhood children had retaliated by covering her trees in toilet paper and pelting her front door with eggs. The year before, they had even sheared patches from her little white poodle, Foofi, and spray painted the side of her house. Afterwards, they cut through her garden hose, and before long, most children on the street knew to stay away from Mrs. Causon's home. But this year, she was even worse. A little girl in a crooked witch's hat approached first. "Trick or treat," she said. Mrs. Causon snatched the girl's candy bag and tossed it from the porch. Wrapped sweets scattered across the yard as the girl ran after them. Later, two boys, one painted like a skeleton, the other hidden beneath a white bedsheet with two holes cut out for eyes. Mrs. Causon poured the remains of her drink into one boy's candy bag and shouted at the other until they fled down the sidewalk. By 8 o'clock, the doorbell had finally stopped ringing. Mrs. Causon settled deeper into her armchair, and Foofi curled nearby. Before long, she drifted off to sleep. When she opened her eyes again, the clock read nearly 11, the neighborhood silent, and then she heard something outside. Bells. Then soon, 3 slow knocks sounded at the door, loud. Mrs. Causon, frustrated, opened it and found a figure barely 3 feet tall standing beneath the porch light. It wore ancient-looking clothes beneath a ragged hooded cloak with tiny tarnished bells fashioned around its boots. Stringy hair and a thin, filthy beard hung down around the face of a jagged, leathery skin. Beneath the hood were sunken eyes and a mouth filled with long, narrow teeth. Its elongated fingers stretched towards her, opening an old sackcloth bag. Then came a voice, impossibly deep for something so small. "Trick or treat." Mrs. Causon stared for a moment before deciding it was another child in an elaborate costume. "You're too late! Go home!" she yelled. "Tell your parents you're a terrible child." The creature then noticed a bowl of candy sitting behind her. Before she could stop it, one long finger reached inside and plucked out a single piece, dropping it into the sack. "Get out!" she yelled. Mrs. Causon rushed it from the doorway, but the creature skipped backwards across the porch, threw itself into a perfect backflip over the steps, and landed lightly on the sidewalk. It then disappeared into the darkness. Only then did Mrs. Causon notice something strange. Little Foofi had never barked, not once. She saw the little white poodle curled beside her armchair. "Some watchdog you are," she yelled. She nudged her with her foot to wake her, but Foofi was cold. Now terrified, Mrs. Causon sat into her armchair. The strange creature, the teeth, the bells, and even Foofi. Perhaps she had never truly awakened from her nap. She pulled the blankets around herself and eventually drifted back to sleep. When she woke again, she instinctively reached down towards Foofi, desperately hoping to feel her warm little body, but instead, Her fingers touched something cold and stiff. It hadn't been a dream. Mrs. Causon looked at the clock. 3 a.m. She waited, but the hand never changed. Broken, she thought. And then she heard the bells. The creature was outside again. Moments later, 3 loud knocks sounded, and Mrs. Causon hobbled her way to the door and opened it only a crack. Soon the elongated hands pressed the door open, and the old sackcloth bag stretched in towards her.
Trick or treat.
She screamed and slammed the door. Mrs. Causon grabbed the telephone and tried to call for help. Nothing. No dial tone. The line had been cut. Mrs. Causon hobbled her old legs towards her armchair and lowered herself down, struggling to catch her breath.
Treat.
Then she looked towards the window. The creature then stood balanced on the porch railing, watching her. It slowly raised one elongated hand and waved, almost as though it were taunting her. And then she heard the bells. And he was gone. Mrs. Causon froze, looked out the window and saw nothing. Then she heard the bells even louder. They were coming from inside the house. She slowly turned to see the front door wide open. Frantically, she looked around everywhere she could, only to see the little creature standing at the end of the hallway, grinning beneath its hood. For the third and final time, that terrible voice filled the house.
Trick or treat, Mrs. Causon.
The next morning, neighbors found Mrs. Causon lying peacefully beside Foofi on the ground. There were no wounds, no sign of a forced entry. Every door remained locked from the inside, but resting neatly in Mrs. Causon's open hand was a single piece of Halloween candy.